The train had burned before sunrise. No warning, no whistle, just a thunder that split the sky and left silence behind. Smoke coiled over the plains like a serpent finding its grave. By the time the sun climbed above the hills, there was nothing left of the freight but iron bones and scattered cinders. Near what remained of the station, an old, splintered platform eaten by dust, 3 native women sat bound in its shadow, wrists cut by coarse rope, faces streaked with ash and defiance. They didn't cry. The youngest, her eyes still wide with disbelief, bit the inside of her cheek until blood came. The middle one, quiet and steady, leaned her head against the post and whispered to the wind. And the eldest, Ayana, whose gaze held the gravity of the earth itself, sat unmoving, her silence sharper than any blade. Around them, the world was still. Even the flies hesitated to land. Then came the jingle. A low metallic rhythm, spurs against hardened soil. The sound of someone who didn't belong to the silence. Out of the heat shimmer, a figure emerged. Tall, dust-covered, and carrying the air of a man who'd long ago made peace with loneliness. His name was Cole Harding, though few dared say it kindly. Folks called him rude, rough, godless. He preferred it that way. A man like him wasn't built for gentleness. He stopped when he saw them. The 3 women, tied like forgotten offerings before the tracks. For a long breath, he said nothing. The brim of his hat hid his eyes, but the tilt of his shoulders betrayed hesitation. Finally, a muttered curse. "Damn this place." Ayana lifted her chin. "You gonna ride on, or finish what they started?" Her voice caught him off guard, not pleading, but edged with pride. He met her gaze and felt a small, unfamiliar flicker of shame. "Ain't my quarrel," he said, though his boots betrayed him, moving closer through the grit. The ropes were tight, layered over with cruelty. He drew his knife and began cutting, not delicately but with impatient force. The blade nicked her skin once. She didn't flinch. When the last strand snapped, her hands fell free, and the blood returned in slow, painful color. The youngest, trembling, whispered her thanks. Cole scowled. "Save it." He turned to the next rope, working in silence. Each stroke of the knife felt heavier than it should have, as if cutting through something more than fiber. When the last of them stood, their wrists marked and raw, he stepped back, awkward and uncertain what to do with the sudden stillness. "Who did this?" he asked. "Men who wear dust like armor," Ayana said. "Bandits. Took our horses. Left us for the sun." Cole spat in the dirt. "Figures." His tone was meant to sound detached, but there was a quiver beneath it, old anger waking in his chest. He started to leave, muttering that they'd be fine now, but the eldest's calm voice stopped him again. "You got blood on your shoulder," she said. He looked down. The wound wasn't fresh, it was from last week, a knife fight he barely remembered. Still, he hated that she'd noticed. "It's mine to keep," he muttered. She only nodded. "Then keep it. But don't let it fester." The words lingered. Too simple. Too true. He turned away to hide his unease, scanning the horizon. That's when he heard it. Faint, rhythmic thunder, not from the heavens this time, but from hooves. Dust rose in the distance like a coming storm. "They're back," whispered the middle sister. Cole cursed under his breath. "Get down." The women ducked behind the broken platform. Cole reloaded his revolver, movements sharp and practiced. He'd spent his life fighting for the wrong things: money, pride, revenge. But this, he told himself, was just survival. No saving souls. No heroics. The first shot cracked the silence open. Cole fired back, his shoulder screaming in protest. Splinters flew from the wooden beams. A bullet grazed his temple, another tore through his coat. The bandits, 3 of them, faces covered in rags, rode in hard, expecting an easy kill. They didn't expect a man like Cole. One fell before he could draw. The second stumbled off his horse, clutching his chest. The third turned to flee, but Ayana stood then, lifting a fallen rifle and firing once. Clean, steady, without hesitation. The man dropped. Silence followed, heavier than before. Cole lowered his gun. His breathing was ragged. Blood seeped through the bandage that had long since failed. The women emerged slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. He looked at them, 3 strangers, alive because of a choice he hadn't meant to make. The youngest approached him first. "You're hurt." He waved her off, gruff. "Ain't the first time." But Ayanna stepped forward, tore a strip from her ochre dress, and pressed it against his wound. Her hands were steady, her eyes unreadable. He tried to pull away, but her voice anchored him. "Be still," she said. "You bleed too easy for a man who fights so hard." He said nothing. The air between them felt charged, raw, almost sacred. When she finished, she tied the cloth with a firm knot, meeting his eyes one last time before stepping back. Cole adjusted his hat, suddenly aware of the quiet again. The train wreck behind them, the fallen bandits, the smoke curling upward, it all felt like the world was holding its breath. He turned to leave, but Ayanna's voice followed him. "You could ride away, cowboy. Or you could stay till morning. The choice might matter more than you think." He froze, the dust catching light around his boots. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. Somewhere beyond the tracks, thunder rolled again, distant, low, and growing. And Cole Harding, a man who'd spent his life running from echoes, suddenly felt the weight of one calling him back. The fever came before dawn. Cole woke with his shirt soaked and his breath ragged, the taste of iron on his tongue. The fire had burned to ash, and the women were already awake, silhouettes moving slow against the dim blue light. Ayanna knelt beside him, her hand cool against his forehead. He tried to speak, but the words tangled somewhere in his throat. The wound on his shoulder had turned angry, red at the edges, pulsing with heat. He'd ignored it too long. Pride always came before pain, and this time, the pain was winning. He pushed her hand away, stubborn as ever. "Don't fuss," he rasped. But Ayanna didn't listen. She pressed a damp cloth to his skin, the scent of crushed herbs filling the air. The mixture stung. Cole cursed, biting down hard. She didn't flinch. "You should have stayed still," she said softly. "A man who rushes death often finds it waiting." He wanted to laugh, but his voice broke instead. "Don't need your wisdom, woman." A small smile touched her lips. "Then take my silence." For a long while, there was only the sound of her grinding herbs, the wind slipping through the boards of the old station. The younger women, Nokomis and Tiva, busied themselves gathering wood and packing supplies. They were leaving soon, heading toward the river where their people waited. Cole was supposed to ride west, to nowhere in particular. When she finished dressing his wound, Ayanna sat across from him. The morning light crept through the cracks, touching the curve of her face, the calmness in her gaze. Cole hated the way she looked at him, not with pity, but with recognition. As if she saw every broken thing inside him and chose not to look away. "You should ride," he said, forcing the words out. "I've caused enough trouble." Her reply came quiet but firm. "You caused what was already coming." That truth cut deeper than his wound. By noon, the fever broke. He could stand again, though his legs felt like sand beneath him. The 4 of them began the slow walk toward the next town, the tracks stretching endless beneath the sun. The world felt wide and hollow, an emptiness that swallowed everything but the sound of their steps. Tiva hummed a tune, something childlike and bright. It didn't belong in this barren place, but it softened the air all the same. Cole found himself walking beside Ayanna. Their words came in small fragments, half thoughts, half confessions. "You got people waiting?" he asked. She nodded. "A few. Some who remember who we were. Some who don't." He looked down, kicking at a stone. "Wish I could say the same." Ayanna glanced at him. "You've lost someone." He nodded once. "A wife. And a boy. Fever took him years back." Silence followed. He expected her to offer comfort, but she didn't. She just walked beside him, steady and sure, letting the truth settle like dust between them. And somehow, that was enough. When they reached the ridge overlooking the town, the sun was sinking low. The buildings below shimmered in the distance, small, tired, almost kind. Cole felt the pull of it. Civilization, or what passed for it. A place to rest, drink, forget. He told himself that's where he'd go once they were safe. But his boots wouldn't move. You could come with us, Ayanna said, almost an afterthought. He shook his head. I don't belong where people remember things. Her eyes softened. Maybe that's where you should start. They stood there, the air thick with things unsaid. For the first time, Cole wanted to stay still. Wanted to listen to something other than the ghosts in his own head. He watched her braid come loose in the wind, the turquoise beads catching the dying light. Something inside him ached in quiet surrender. When they reached the river that evening, Nokomis and Tiva crossed first. Cole lingered at the bank, the current whispering against the stones. He turned to her. Guess this is where I ride out. Ayanna nodded. It always is. But then she stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the faint smoke in her hair. Before you go, she said, promise me one thing. Don't keep running from the ones who would forgive you. He opened his mouth, but she pressed her hand lightly against his chest, over the scarred fabric and the beating heart beneath. Even men like you can heal, she murmured. And just like that, she stepped back. The river carried the reflection of her figure, a ripple, then gone. Cole watched until the last shimmer of her beads disappeared into the brush. The night fell quiet, heavy with unspoken things. He mounted his horse, hands trembling against the reins. The path ahead was dark, endless, but something had shifted inside him, an unfamiliar peace, or maybe the beginning of one. As he turned toward the west, thunder rumbled again, low and distant, rolling over the horizon. For the first time in years, he didn't ride away from it. He rode toward it, carrying with him the echo of her voice, soft as wind, certain as dawn. And somewhere behind him, carried on that same wind, a song rose from the riverbank, her song, the one that began the night he saved her. It followed him into the dark, haunting and kind, as if reminding him that salvation rarely comes gentle, but it comes.